Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1938 French drama comedy, The Baker's Wife.
Monsieur le Marquis, je suis très honoré.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. I am humbled by what you just called me, but there's no reason for that. You can just go ahead and call me Mark. If this is your first time joining me, I'm reviewing every movie in this book, the 1001 movies you must see before you die. The Baker's Wife stars Raymond as Amble and Jeanette as Aralie. Jeanette is his wife, Aralie is his wife. This movie is a landmark of French poetic realism. It blends realism with warmth and gentle humor, capturing everyday village life in a deeply human way. It focuses on community and human nature. The story is about a baker whose wife leaves him, and it becomes a study of how an entire village reacts, revealing collective responsibility, gossip, and compassion. It has a strong influence on later filmmakers. Its tone and humanistic storytelling influenced directors interested in small communities and character-driven narratives. It also has a cultural importance in France. It remains one of Pagnol's most beloved works and a key example of pre-World War II French cinema. Now, I don't do a lot of reading on my own because I'm watching just movies all the time, but one book that I have read, which I absolutely loved, was The Catcher in the Rye. And in The Catcher in the Rye, Holden takes his sister to see the baker's wife to demonstrate that she is intelligent and sophisticated for her age. So this film was also referenced in that book, The Catcher in the Rye. Now, this movie goes, the main character of Amble, goes through the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I will touch on those as I do the review. I would like to say before I get into the review that I have watched a lot of the top 100 best foreign films of all time, which there's a consensus, mostly a consensus on a lot of the list. People will have the same movies, and I want to say that this movie is better than probably 30 or 40% of those films. This is such a great movie, and I don't know why it's not held in a higher regard than it is. I mean, it is held in a very high regard, but why it's not considered one of the greatest foreign films of all time is news to me. It is a fantastic, moving drama that I absolutely loved. I don't know if there was a whole lot of comedy in it. Maybe it was funny for its time, but this movie is very well acted, directed. The writing is spectacular. There's only one complaint I have that I'll touch on in just a few minutes. So when this movie opens up, we have a town who is starved for bread. Now, their previous baker tried to commit suicide and ended up leaving. His bread was not the greatest bread in the world. He had substandard bread sometimes, and the town was just not happy with it. So now they have a new baker. They had a little bit of time in between the last baker and this baker where they had to just kind of rough it and do things on their own. So now that they have a skilled baker of bread, they are happy, jubilant, excited. They can now have bread for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whenever they want. Their world is theirs. Carpe diem, seize the day. So they absolutely love this new baker. He's just great. The first day on the job, there's this very rich person who comes into town, and he says, I'm going to give my shepherd Dominique a bag. He's going to come here once a week, and you're going to fill those bags with bread on top of the normal bread that you bake, because I want tons and tons of bread, and we'll pay you once a week. And that's the kind of relationship that I want with you. Now, the baker is married to Aralie, who is much younger than him. I'd say probably 15, 20 years younger than him. And the entire town thinks that she is absolutely gorgeous. There are even people who go up to Amble and talk about fantasies that they have with his wife. And he just kind of laughs it off and says, oh yeah, my wife's beautiful. I understand. Yes, very good. Like he's not a jealous type. But they all talk about her and how beautiful she is and how much they want to be with her, essentially. Even the wives in town are a little upset by the fact that they might lose their husbands to this woman. But the minute his wife, Aralie, sees Dominique, she falls for him. I don't know if she falls in love with him. She definitely is attracted to him. it's very hard to really understand what's going on in her brain and really understand what her feelings and emotions are, because she has very few talking lines in this film. At the very end, she talks quite a bit, but in the very beginning, there's basically nothing. You really, throughout the entire film, you really have to use the words of the baker, the emotions that the baker's going through, what he's telling you, what the town is telling you, to kind of give a secondhand story of what she's feeling. And that's my one critique of this movie, is I wish that I knew what was going on in her head and how she really felt about Dominique and how she really felt about her husband and why she did what she did and how she feels about getting back with him and all that stuff. But it's a storyline that never really comes together. You kind of have to piece it together yourself. So she ends up being attracted to Dominique. He is very attracted to her as well. And through the cover of night, they run away with each other. After they run away with each other, the baker wakes up the next day. So his wife is the one who usually wakes him up. If there's like bread cooking or something, I don't know if it cooks overnight or how that works, but there's bread cooking in the oven, and she usually wakes him up to get it out of the oven. And of course, she wasn't there to do that because she ran off with Dominique. So someone from the town runs up to him and says, your bread's burning. There's a fire. It's going to burn down the oven. And he says, oh, my wife usually wakes me up. She must be sleeping in. All this bacon on bread on the first day being here. It's a lot of activity. I'm sure she's very tired. She must just be upstairs sleeping. So he checks the entire house and he can't find her anywhere. And he thinks that maybe she's playing a joke on him, that she's hiding somewhere, and he just can't find her. So he looks everywhere, and then he realizes that she's not there. So he starts to think, well, maybe she just went to her mother's house. That's possible. She went to see his mother. Now, the Dominique's boss, who is the rich person, ends up, no one in town believes this. They all think that she ran off on him. They all think that she ran away because she's so much younger and she's attractive, and she just went off and she's not coming back anymore. Now the boss, Dominique's boss, comes and he says, my horse is missing. He's a prized horse. He's worth 12,000, whatever the currency is, francs or something, probably francs. I think he ran off with your wife. I'm pretty sure that we have news, people have seen it, that he ran off with your wife. This is kind of where the denial part of the 5 stages of grief come in, because even though there's proof that his wife ran off with Dominique, the baker still insists that she just went to her mother's house. I think deep down inside, he understands and he realizes that his wife ran off with another woman, but he wants to be convinced. He wants to tell himself that his wife is at his mother's house, or her mother's house. So this kind of splits the town a little bit. There's a teacher in town who it seems like is very sad by what happened, and he's kind of supportive of the baker. He understands that the baker is very upset because his wife left, and that they were married for like 5 years, and he has a real loss here. He's really lost something that he loves and that he feels compassionate about. And, you know, obviously you're going to be depressed when your wife runs out on you. The rest of the town, however, thinks it's really funny that his wife ran out on him for whatever reason, because she's a harlot, because he married a harlot, because he's so much older than her. I don't remember all the reasons, but a lot of them think that it's just hilarious that his wife ran out on him. And then you have the preacher in town who is kind of, he seems like he goes both ways sometimes, but he tries to be, the preacher who's in town tries to be very, he doesn't try to take sides, and he tries to defend both viewpoints, it would seem. So there's a point in the movie where the preacher is giving a sermon and he's talking about about Amble's wife. At this point, Amble has accepted that his wife has ran off with the shepherd and that she's not coming back. And the preacher gives a speech which Amble does not like, and Amble gets like sloppy drunk and gets very angry and very sad at the same time. So this is kind of the anger and depression. I mean, depression will also be later, but he kind of goes through anger and depression at the same time, where he gets very drunk and he decides that he's not going to bake anymore because he was doing all the baking for his wife. He was trying to set all this money aside. He was trying to save money for their future. He was trying to save money to give to her so she could spend in town. This whole thing was for her. The whole business was for her. He's too depressed. He can no longer bake, and he's just going to basically wallow in self-pity and drink himself into a stupor. There's this funny scene where he's very drunk, very belligerent. Not belligerent. He's not mad or anything. He's just very sloppily drunk in the middle of town drinking, and there's all these people around him. And then he starts talking about this other guy's wife and like the way her body parts are shaped and how she's not an attractive woman. And he goes into a lot of detail about this woman's body. And there's children around, and they're like, don't talk that way in front of the children. Don't you have any decency? Send the children away. He's talking about body parts, but he's sloppy drunk. Does that not also warrant getting the children away? You're watching some guy drink himself to death, essentially. So what they consider to be bad in front of the children, to me, I thought was funny. I thought both of those were really bad. He shouldn't be doing any of those in front of the children. So then we get to the bargaining stage. I would say bargaining is also where he thinks that his wife is at his mother's house, and he keeps saying his wife is at his mother's house. And there's also a point where they know where the wife went. So they find the wife. The whole town decides that they need to look for the baker's wife. The teacher, because he needs to find his wife, because he's depressed and sad, and he's having a hard time going on with his life, and he needs to have his wife back. And the rest of the town, because they want their bread. He hasn't been able to bake because he's so sad and depressed, and he said he's not going to bake anymore. And the town was not going to go longer without bread. They've had a taste of that sweet baker bread, and they're not going to give it up. I also think that there's a lot of spiritual references in this movie, and I think that the baker is also losing his daily bread. It's not just the town that's losing their daily bread. It's also the baker who's losing their daily bread, because the daily bread from a biblical or religious point of view is essential sustenance, both physical and spiritual, needed for daily life. So the physical sustenance that he needs is his wife, and he doesn't have her anymore. And then he also doesn't have the spiritual needs that he needs as well. He's turned his back on God, essentially. He has started drinking. He has started doing some of those 7 deadly sin type things. So I think he is also losing his daily bread as well. I think that they're supposed to be saying that the town and him have both lost their bread. So the town goes, and they go in different groups, and they search for the wife. The first couple groups come back, and they have not been able to find her. So he kind of goes into the acceptance stage where they're just not going to find her. She's not coming back. He is going to be alone for the rest of his life. He falls into this deep depression, and he ends up going down to the cellar where the previous baker hung himself, and he tries to hang himself. In fact, he gets the rope, puts it around his neck, he kicks the thing out from under him. Now, a couple of the people who went out to look for his wife and who have come back, they wonder, he's been gone for a very long time in the cellar, where could he have gone? So they rush down there, and they see him hanging, and they try to get him up out of it, and he's fighting. He doesn't want to get up out of it because he wants to die. And then someone shouts, "We found your wife!" And then he says, "Please cut me down, they found my wife." So they cut him down. The guy who found the wife is this fisherman who had an accident when he was young, and he hurt his head. And he says that, I'm going to tell you the story of where I found your wife, but if you stop me in the middle of my story, I'm not going to be able to remember where I was because of this injury that I have. So it's very important that you don't stop me as I'm telling the story. So this is midday, probably closer to evening. And he says, well, the story started this morning when I was going out to fish, and I put some bait on the line and I threw it in the water, and it was just dangling there, and there's no fish at first, but then I threw it in the water again, and there was a bite there. And then the story it's like a rambling story from an old person that just goes absolutely nowhere. It's hilarious, and the baker ends up getting slowly frustrated by the story of what's going on. And someone interrupts this old guy, and he says, well, no, I don't know where I'm at. I've lost my spot. Like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And then the baker grabs him and says, remember the story. Remember where she was. And then he, like, remembers what happened. The shepherd and your wife are on an island together, and your wife was nude, and they were just having the best time. And since your wife was nude, I sat there and I watched for a little bit. It's basically the story. So they send a guy and the preacher together to go find the wife. Now there's this marsh, and the preacher doesn't know how to get through the marsh, so he rides on the back of the other guy, which is, I guess this movie's funnier than I thought. I said at the beginning it wasn't really a comedy, but now that I'm thinking about the movie in my head, there are funny parts. So they end up approaching the island, and the preacher shouts out, like, this is the preacher. You need to go home to your husband. And Dominique, who's there, is a very religious man, even though he's helping commit adultery. He's very religious, and he says, that's the preacher. Our sin is done. We can no longer do this anymore. He's going to cast some sort of spell on us, and he's going to send us straight to hell. So he gets scared, and he runs off immediately. The wife basically calls him an idiot. You idiot! What are you talking about? And the wife ends up going back, and it seems like at first she doesn't want to go back, but I think at the end of the movie, the baker gives a very nice, I want to say monologue, where he talks about how he's talking about his cat, but he's basically referencing his wife, about how his wife came back to him even though he's much older and she's younger, and she had every right to leave him if she wanted to because he's a much older person, but he thinks that she came back because he has money, because he has his profession. She doesn't really have to work. She gets everything she wants, and she wouldn't be able to live on her own without him because she doesn't have a job and she doesn't have money. And you just have to assume that that's the reason why she did it, because there's no other reason given, really. And that's basically the end of the movie. She stays with him. It's probably going to be a very unhappy marriage going forward. But you have to assume that that is the reason why she left, because you never hear her side of the story. Now, it feels like she really wanted to pursue a relationship with Dominique, and she definitely is not attracted to her husband, the baker. There's no physical attraction there. So maybe it is just the money thing. Maybe that is why she's with him. But you can tell by the fact that he says it's a loveless marriage, that there's no attraction, and that she was naked on the island with Dominique, that she does have those feelings, that she does have that passion, that she does want to be touched and to be loved, just not by her husband. She has someone else. Now, did she love Dominique? I mean, she left her marriage to run away with him. Was it just a sin of passion? If it was, then she didn't think it all the way through, because if it doesn't work out, she didn't know that her husband would take her back and that the town would take her back. So it wasn't just like a knee-jerk thing that she did out of passion, or did she actually love Dominic? Now, at the end of the movie, Dominic says it was just a thing of sin that they were doing. So obviously he doesn't feel love for her. He just thought it was a fling. So he's flinging with a married woman, even though he's super religious. Is that what she wanted as well? I really wish we could have gotten inside of her head, and we really could have heard more from her and heard her feelings. Like maybe at the end of the movie, she also gives some kind of speech as to why she did what she did, how she was feeling when she did it. But there's just really nothing. Like, I'm okay with having to figure stuff out on my own, but I really feel like there's a hole there that they're not filling, that I wish they would. But besides that, this movie is fantastic. The dialogue is great. The drama at the end of the movie, seeing this man slowly go from denial to wanting to commit suicide. He just has this great acting range. His name is Rameau, I think. He was a pretty famous French actor in the early French movie days, but he is just phenomenal. Wow, he has such great acting range in this film. His arc is absolutely phenomenal. He just does an amazing job with what he has here. The other actors are really good. The guy who plays the preacher is phenomenal. He has a lot to do in this movie as well. I thought he was great. The cast of characters who are around him are really good. They all have their own personalities. Absolutely fantastic. The entire town as a whole, I thought they all played their parts very well. I don't think there's any sound or music in this movie. I don't remember any sound or music in this movie. Maybe I'm wrong, but so I can't really critique that. But the cinematography is really good. I'm not always so. Besides Pepe Le Moco, I don't think I'm a huge fan of. I think Pepe Le Moco was French. Was it? Sounds French. I'm not a huge fan of early French film. And when I read the synopsis of this movie and saw that it was 2 hours and 15 minutes, I thought, oh boy, I am in for some trouble here. I am going to have a hard time getting through this movie, but it could not have been any more different than that. This was such an easy film to get through. 2.5 hours, easy, no problem. This was a great film. This is a great movie. It's got such a simple plot, such an easy plot, but man, could they act the heck out of this film. I thought it was great. It's a 9.5 out of 10. It would have been a 10 out of 10 if I got into the mind of the wife a little bit more and knew what she was thinking and knew her motivations. And I really thought that she could have had a lot to do here, that she could have really propelled this film. I mean, maybe that's why this film isn't on the top 100 list, but I feel like she could have propelled that film to that level, but she just wasn't able to because she wasn't given enough to do. But it's a 9.5 out of 10. I hope you join me next time when I review Bringing Up Baby. Thank you. Have a great day.